Mike Libecki. This guy has completely changed my life. I met Mike in 2012. We did an expedition to Greenland. This is a picture of Mike after a trip we did. We went to China-Kyrgyzstan border, did a big rock climb, and we lived, when you live out for a month out in the backcountry, you start to stink. All your stuff smells, right? You can't wait for the hotel. You can't wait to just pack all that stuff up and put it away and be like, I will deal with you when I get home. Like, I need 2 days of rest. I want to get clean. Mike, he's so driven. So we get to our first hotel, and we're all so excited. I go, just stuff ignored. And I remember taking a shower, and I walk over into Mike's room, and he's sharing a room with this other guy, Ethan. And I come in their room, and it smells like base camp. I'm like, what's going on in here? And all of his wet stuff is out drying. He's already taking inventory on everything he has. He's so motivated. It's almost like he's leaving for another expedition, right after this, which he probably was. He's done 60 expeditions. He's amazing. And I look over, and my friend Ethan, he's doing that thing where you got your shirt over your nose, but and he's reading, and I come in, and he's like, hey, it wasn't even like he said anything doesn't this suck? He was just hit accepted it at that point. But Mike is that guy. He's so motivated. So I did this trip with him in Greenland, and after the trip, he said to me, he's like, man, I'm planning on going to Antarctica in November, and I think National Geographic's on board. He's like, do you want to come? You could be the filmmaker. I'm talking to Corey Richards. He's going to be the photographer. And Freddie Wilkinson, he's going to be my climbing partner. So I knew all these guys, right? And I was like, that sounds like an incredible trip. It's like, okay, well, I'm planning on it being 2 months. So you're going to need to take 2 months off if it happens. And I said, if this comes through, I'll make it work. And so sure enough, National Geographic, they're into the story. And off we went down to Antarctica for one of the coolest adventures of my life, an incredible expedition. Well, getting to Antarctica is not simple. It's not like you just call up United and you just fly down. It's a series of flights. And so we are in South Africa here. This plane here, this is an old military plane run by this group called ALSI. It's a Russian outfit. And basically, we show up, you board this flight, and you get on, and it's a 6-hour flight from the tip of South Africa to Antarctica. And it's a crazy flight. It's not like you get on and there's flight attendants. It's just a bunch of scientists and military people that work on this base. And the porta potties are bolted down to that's the toilet situation. And then your gear, they just cargo nets. And I'm like, what about if there's turbulence? I don't think they care. It can just get bucked around. And they're just so anyway, we get on the flight and we're like, this is kind of crazy. Well, the flight only has enough gas to make it across the ocean, right? When you get to the halfway point, it's called the point of no return. So when they go, they really make sure there's a good weather window, right? So we waited in Cape Town for, it was a week or more, waiting for that weather window to happen. And then when it happened, or when we got it, boom, you go down. And you land in this completely new place, right? It's summer in South Africa in November. And then you arrive down here where it's, minus 20, right off the plane. You get dressed an hour before they send up this little signal. They're like, put your clothes on. And you just fully get dressed. And then when you get off, you start hauling your bags. And there's guys waiting there with sleds. They take you to your little home. These little Conex containers. So day one, really nice. Weather window, we got in. Day two, we wake up. And it's crazy outside. It's the wind's picked up, freezing cold. This lasted for about 5 days, right? And the people there, they're used to it. They're just plowing stuff, keeping the flight path clean. We're just festering in our rooms. We're like, this is awful, just kind of purgatory waiting. And what you do every day is you go in, you check the weather. Has the weather changed? You know it hasn't, but you ask anyway. So on the 5th day, this guy here, he's the Russian meteorologist. He's kind of explaining hey, looks like you guys are going to have a window. You're going to have a 10-hour window. It's going to be really short. So we took all the gear. It's 1,800 pounds of gear, duffel bags, everything else, loaded in the plane. And the pilot explained to us, look, I can get you in, but you guys got to get your gear real quick because I got to get back. It was, I think it was 200 miles. And there's Mike, perpetually excited, right? He's unflappable, this guy. I've seen him break his hand. He's ah, and I'm not kidding. And he's the only guy that got frostbite on the trip. And he's no problem. And so anyway, you land, you unpack, and then watching the plane go away, that's a very surreal feeling, right? That is the last bit of heat and comfort. And I forget, we were there 50 days or something. It's crazy, right? And you really, it sinks in quick. As you're pulling all the equipment off, you're just like, man, it's on. Like, this is happening. And then the first thing you do is there's no time to waste because we know how quickly the weather changes down there. First thing you do is we built base camp. And what we did was we're out in the middle of the ice cap here. So we just cut out ice blocks. And this is all under Mike's guidance. He'd been to Antarctica 6 times. He even did a solo trip, which to this day, I don't know how he did it. And you built this perimeter, and this is really more for wind. And we set up base camp, and life was pretty good. We were psyched. I remember waking up the next morning, and it was the walls already bent and collapsing. And Freddie's out there just shoveling and doing maintenance. And I'm like, wow, this is going to be a full-time job just keeping this thing together. But the plan was to not stay here. The plan was we were going to do a big circumnavigation around the entire mountain range and go look for the perfect climbing line and do a little exploration. So what we did is we packed, on day 3, because we knew the weather was okay, we packed up our sleds and about 90 pounds each with tents and food. And the plan was to kite ski. So this is Mike Libecki here attempting to kite ski. It was crazy watching him take off. It was as if someone had a slingshot and they're like, and so we knew that wasn't going to work. So and I was relieved because I don't even know how to ski. I grew up snowboarding. And so anyway, day 1, it was probably 10 hours of this, and we show up at the end of the day. We're like, okay, we have to set up base camp. Well, the winds were hideously howling, and we found this little tiny boulder here. And that was the only little shelter we had to get behind. It's probably 1 in the morning at this point. The sun's always up in the summertime down there. It's like midnight sun. And so I remember this day being the worst day of the whole trip. And thank God it was day 3 or 4. But I had no frame of reference. I'm like, this is going to be hard. I don't know what I'm going to do here. Because just setting this camp up was awful. I remember Corey and I getting in our tent, and you're soaking wet because you're overheating because you're working, and then the snow is just going all down you, and you're just wet. And I'm like, I can't do this for 45 days, man. And Mike and Freddie are in there just laughing and it's fun, right? And I'm like, yeah, super fun. And so for 5 days, we circumnavigated this mountain range, and it was a surreal experience. I've never done anything like it. It was either snow and skis, or on the right here, there was times where it would be just miles and miles of just sapphire blue ice. And it was never just flat. It was very 3-dimensional. And you'd put crampons on and you would just walk. And there were times where we would be staggered by maybe even a mile apart. So you would be pretty alone. At one point I left a tripod. I stopped and I shot some pictures or video. And as we stopped at our next little rest spot 2 miles up, and I went to grab my tripod and I was like, I left it. And I had to go back. Corey waited for me, and Mike and Freddie were like, we need to find a base camp. So I went back, and I remember during that little 2-mile walk back, it was like a beautiful, scary feeling, It was you don't want anything bad to happen because that would be terrible. You're in a bad situation if you get injured. But it was also surreal and kind of interesting to be like, wow, this is the furthest away I've ever been from people in my entire life, and probably ever will be. And that you can experience that in Antarctica. So the plan is that, you set up these little satellite camps, and we would run into the mountains, and we would use binoculars trying to find the perfect climb. And on the final day, we actually did get to kite ski. And again, I've never skied before. I wish I had this on film. I remember everyone's like, we're at our wits' end at this point. It's day 5. We're all tired. We're just pining to get back to base camp. We're tired. And so Mike's helping me set my kite up, right? And he knows I've never skied. I can cross-country ski pretty good at this point, and I understand edging just from, using my edges from snowboarding, but it's different with skis. And so Mike's helping me out, and he's got my kite, and he's going to launch it for me, right, let it get filled with wind. And he says to me, this is the last thing he says to me, he's like, remember, pizza, French fries. If you ski, you know what that means. If you don't, it basically means to slow down, pizza, to go fast, French fries, right? And I'm like, oh, man. And so off I go. And I probably got about I would say a mile, maybe a little more. And I'm gripped, right? But I'm making it work. It is totally like fight or flight. And he looked nervous letting me go because you could break your leg, man. I got 90 pounds of stuff, like tents and crampons and stuff. And it can't, you've got these poles, so it's sort of separated from you, but it's not great. And everyone's left, right? We've got walkie-talkies, but we're all very spread out at this point. And so I go taking off, and these guys all had like a little harness so they could kind of clip their handle onto. So, it's good. You're not having to grip onto this thing and use all your strength. You just have to kind of navigate it. I didn't have a harness, and I'm just holding it, right? And so about a mile into this thing, and you're screaming fast, I'm like, I cannot hold this thing anymore. I'm pumped out of my mind. And Mike said, okay, when you want to drop the kite, you move the bar this way, it'll move the strings, the wind will follow, the kite will fall down. So I'm just like trying to pizza french fries my way through this thing, and I'm like holding the thing, and the kite won't fall, right? And I'm just like, this is terrible. So finally I get to the point where I can't hold it anymore, and I just like let it go. Oh, it was the worst thing. I watched it just sail away. And I'm like, oh, I have to go get it, man. It's so bad. And I fell to my knees, and I did the only thing I could do was I knew I had to like get this rage out. So I was on my knees, very tired. And I remember I just like pounded my fist like a child. I just like pounded my fist into the snow and like screamed some curse word. And then I was like, okay, that's all you get, man. You got to go get it. So I put my skins on, which is a total process, right? And I went and I kite skied out. Well, the worst part is I'd get like 10 feet from the kite, and the wind, it hit the ground now, and the wind would just be like, Just like, oh man, you're trying to get it with like your pole, and it did that for like a mile, right? And I almost left it, but I just was like, this is my trash, I need to pack it out. So I got it, and I stuffed it into my thing. I was like, I'll never use this again. I didn't like fold it up nicely at all. Anyway, man, I need to move on. Okay, so we get back to base camp, right? And this is what we came back to. 5 days was enough to just utterly ravage our camp, right? And poor Freddie, he was the writer, so the writer should always have the worst experiences. What I've learned. He needs something to talk about. And so his tent was totally destroyed, right? But we knew, like, we cannot stay here. But on our trip, we found out where we wanted to climb, right? Reflected in Mike's glasses here, the tower on the right. That was the line. So that was good. We had accomplished something, but we knew we have to move all this gear, and we cannot stay out in this ice cap. So we moved into the talus field over here. The tower's just slightly out of frame on the left, but all 1,800 pounds of gear had to go. So it took 2 days, right, of just like load after load. You'd ski it in, and then you'd have to like hike it up. But we found this really great spot, kind of mostly out of the wind, and it was close enough to the tower, and we nestled in. And it was great. The wind was a lot less. The snow was the real problem because the wind just pushes snow on you all the time. Well, we were out of that. But the one thing we know, the only non-benefit of the snow is we had to find little snow patches of snow that had collected, and that's where we would have to fill up big duffel bags, and that's how we would drink our water. So this little white stuff you're seeing in the snow there, that's like bird poop that's like 1,000 years old, man. Because there's birds that are down there, but nothing decomposes, right? So you dig down like 3 feet, and everything was full of white stuff. And we realized that pretty quick. And it's crazy on expeditions how you just stop caring about certain things. The cleanliness of your bowl, everything just becomes like one like amalgam of spice where there's like coffee and like curry. And you're just like eating, you're like, yeah, man, like this is so awesome. And you just stop caring. And the bird poop was just all part of the amalgam. Right? And so, anyway, the real objective was to climb this 2,200-foot, spire, this beautiful piece of rock. The little guy in the corner down there, that's Corey. We had to now start moving in our equipment to get to the base of the climb and then start it. And so over the next 40 days, Mike and Freddie just threw themselves at this tower, inching their way up, and every now and then you'd get a storm that would blow in, and it would last for 1 to 5 days, and you just kind of bunker down and hang out, and then these guys would get right back on the wall and start going up again. And slowly they inched their way closer and closer to the top until we were completely victorious, and it was an incredible adventure. And I'll show you the 3-minute short film. You can also watch it online, but this is the 3-minute film that was made from it, as well as the television show.
This is one of the most challenging environments for a climber you can visit anywhere on planet Earth. Big part of the game is approaching these unclimbed, unexplored mountains and looking for the coolest way to get to the top. That for us as climbers is the path. We spent a week ski touring around, looking, with binoculars at every mountain within striking distance of us. And this is, without a doubt, the proudest line we found. The environment is so hostile. You die up here in a matter of hours without the right gear and the right expertise. This is like the SWAT team, special weapons and tactics. This isn't aid climbing or free climbing or speed climbing. This is just like whatever it takes climbing. But it'll be spicy for sure. Every day we wake up and we don't know what we're going to be able to do safely. You definitely have to work for everything in Antarctica. Nothing is a given. You have to earn it. Unpredictability. It's about, the unknown. Hundreds of mountains that are unclimbed. It's like being an astronaut going up there, going into outer space. You need to have a survival suit on. You need to be prepared for everything.
Scary.
If I were you, I'd place one bolt and then 2 rivets. As a counterbalance to that extreme consequence and severity is just these moments of surreal, otherworldly beauty.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's pretty incredible looking back at that magazine, the National Geographic story, storming the tower all those years ago, and then flashing forward to 2012 and really going and doing my own version of storming the tower, having an adventure, 4 people going out, 4 close friends, and in 2 months having our own sort of trials and tribulations. And Bill Hatcher is the photographer that shot the story, and I've since become friends with Bill, and it's so fun exchanging stories and catching up and talking about the different adventures and things we've been on. And it's really National Geographic that inspired me down this entire road to this very platform I'm standing on today. And it's so rare. I didn't even realize it until earlier in the week when I pulled this photo to talk about it as I was putting it into the presentation. This sort of full circle situation that I'd kind of found myself in. It's really quite cool. So this is us at the end, successful. All barely worse for wear after such a fun adventure. Oh, that's right, I put in Mike Libecki bonus material. Okay, so I forgot about this. Okay, so 2 years ago, Mike calls me up and he says he's got another tower project in mind, right? But this time it's very different. It's in the small country called Uapau. It's down in the South Pacific, right? I'd never heard of it before. And he sent me some photos, and I'm like, wow, this is crazy. And so I'm like, I'm in. He calls me and my friend Andy Mann and our friend Angie Payne, and she's like, this is the team of 4, and we're all in, right? And it was this beautiful tower right here. This is it. The tower's called Poumaka. And Mike said something I've never heard him say before when we were on the phone talking about planning and logistics. We're all excited. And he said, there'll be moments on the trip where you wish you didn't come. I've done 8 expeditions. I've never heard him say something like that. And I'm like, what do you mean? And so anyway, I quickly learned what he meant. This is day 10. where in Antarctica, it's cold, but you can put clothing on. You can sort of like figure out a way to kind of deal with the cold and insulate yourself. Down here, it's just mud and heat and wet, and even if you're wet and hot, it's so wet. You have to like protect yourself from like bugs and bushes and everything else. And it was a completely different Sufferfest. Something like I've never had this level of Sufferfest in my life, but it was still so much fun. So I'm going to show you the film. This is actually going to be screening at, I hope I get the name right. It's the International Conservation Film Festival. I think that's right. And in the next couple weeks. So if you want to see the film, it'll be here in DC very soon.
It's going to be a real long night. And I'm terrified.
Somebody's got to come up and clean. Get out of here. It's pretty fucking mayhemish up here, but once we get here, we'll figure it out. Over.
How the f*** did I get here?
Ka'oha koe uapo I matuita Toau nei henua Tumue Te eka nei mato Mauka Ka'oha koe mea kanaha Yee! I see the way you turn away, you never do what you say.
Jungle mayhem ahead. Just mystery, complete mystery. And you know what mystery brings? It brings adventure.
This is the kind of moment in life where it's okay to be broken.
This is what was holding me in. These pitons. Sludge fist.
This is maybe the most miserable thing I've ever done in my life.
Mud, anger, expletives.
Poumaka.
Thank you. So yes, if you want to see that, that'll be here in 2 weeks at that film festival. I wanted to end talking about 2 projects I recently worked on, and they're both climate change based. In 2015, I got a phone call from National Geographic magazine asking me if I would be interested in working on a climate change story on America's national parks. And the outdoors is my life. It means so much to me. The beautiful places in our national park system here, we're so lucky. We have these incredible parks. And so of course I said yes. And I started, National Geographic, they set you up for success, right? There was scientists and biologists in different contexts, people I could talk to, so you could kind of figure out like what the story is, and you start learning things this way. It's remarkable. And so I'm going to just run you through the different photos, right? So this is in Glacier National Park. This is the Grinnell Glacier, right? You can see the 3 different parts of it. And like 20 years ago, this was all connected and actually kind of like covering most of the lake, and 30 to 40 years ago, it was actually kind of running down the mountain. The glaciers in the park are receding so quickly that they say that by 2030, they'll all be gone. All the glaciers in Glacier National Park will be gone. Heat index just keeps going up, right? It's getting warmer all the time. This is in Sequoia National Park. These are the oldest living trees in the world. They're also the tallest living trees. They get in excess of 300 feet tall. And these big trees, they drink as much as 500 gallons of water a day, right? They require a lot of water. And they're completely unique to the Sierra Mountains, right? They're endemic to this one little spot in California. And if you've ever seen them, you know what I'm talking about. They are incredible. But, with heat index on the rise and drought, they're already starting to see a lot of signs of stress in these trees. And there's a lot of question marks as to whether or not they're national treasures actually, but what the future of these trees is looking like. Things are changing so quickly. This is smoke this is in Glacier National Park, and this is smoke from fires, some as far as Washington State, like all the smoke that had kind of blown in. And fire danger is going up higher and higher every year. They're seeing fire in the Arctic. Places like far north Alaska. It's crazy, like places that have never experienced fires before. And it's all based on like the drought and the heat factor. This is an American alligator. This is down in the Everglades National Park. I really fell in love with the Everglades. It's such a special place. And the Everglades is down in the southern tip of the state. And it's surrounded by water on all three sides. And with ocean sea rise, the salinity levels of the water are slowly changing, as the ocean rises a little more. It starts pushing. This is all fresh water in the Everglades. And because the park's all the way down in the south, as the water ocean keeps rising, the salinity levels are changing. Well, American alligators, it's not an endangered species, but the thing with this alligator is its real refuge is kind of down in the Everglades. As is a lot of the animals that are down there, especially the freshwater ones. They're slowly going to get pushed further north and eventually out of the park. And then it's mostly just residential. It's a completely different place, Florida, once you get out of these wild wetlands. And so there's a lot of animals that are there's a lot of question marks. This is in Joshua Tree National Park. And they're saying that by the year 2100, there may be no new sprouts from Joshua trees. I think in 30% of the park, there hasn't been a new sprout in like 2 decades or something. It's already kind of happening. And these are crazy signs. And when I got the assignment, I was told like a lot of what you're shooting, look at it like it's time capsule photography. Like you're shooting things the way they are now, but they're changing really quickly. And it would be wild to think about Joshua Tree National Park without Joshua trees, or Sequoia National Park without sequoia trees, or Glacier National Park without glaciers, etc. And the big question is like, what do you do? And I think the big answer is, we need good legislation, people that are making good decisions that can make the big changes. And then for us, it's basically making small choices, like using less water when you can and carpooling with other people when you can. Smaller decisions. There's 7 billion people on the planet, and it's a really hard situation. But we kind of have to work collectively together to hopefully make things, salvage things as we can. The most recent trip I did was down to Antarctica, which I kind of talked briefly about at the beginning. I went down with Paul Nicklin and Christina Mittermeier. These are two of my heroes. I mean, Paul's like a photography legend. I've loved his work for so many years. Christina she's just got a heart of gold, and she's a staunch conservationist, as is Paul. And so Paul led an expedition down there of a team of amazing videographers, VR, and then Christina, Paul, and I worked on the photo side for the magazine. And what I saw down there both was completely breathtaking and also quite revealing. So I'm going to walk you through kind of the characters of Antarctica, of what we saw. So we mostly concentrated on the southern part of the peninsula, right? Sorry, the northern part of the peninsula, forgive me. And we went to all these different places and we got to see like the beauty of the place, and we got to see a lot of the wildlife. There's lots of wildlife down there. This is a classic example of how pretty it is down there. What you're seeing here is like polished rocks where ice used to be, and it's kind of like moved off now. But it was beautiful, big glaciers floating by. Got lucky, got some really nice light. There's big mountains everywhere. You're constantly going through fjords and seeing these beautiful mountain ranges that like looks like the Tetons, but you're down in Antarctica, and you can see where the glaciers have kind of receded. I mean, they're losing ice very quickly down there. The animals you see down there, you see, of course, penguins. There's 5 different types of penguins that live down there, and I think that I read there's about 11 million collectively that live down there. Okay, you have all these great seals. This is a Weddell seal. This is a fur seal. And this is the legendary leopard seal, right? This is what Paul, if you're familiar with Paul Nicklin, in 2006, he did a leopard seal story that was unbelievably iconic. And it was such an honor to get in the water with Paul and have leopard seal interactions. This little mouthing move right here, it looks like a threat display, but this is just this they communicate with like air bubbles and by opening their mouth and seeing how you react. And they're also looking at the reflection in your dome of your camera. So I think to them even it's sort of this like new and weird kind of cool thing. But they were so incredible to be in the water with. And then as you know, you have the big animals, right? You have the big whales. There's humpback whales and pilot whales and minke whales and all the rest. Okay, so all these animals are connected to one thing. They're connected to krill. Krill is like a little shrimp, right? And all these animals, their main source of food is krill. And the thing is krill eats bacteria and algae that grows on sea ice. Well, sea ice is kind of receding. We're seeing it go away quite quickly. And so that's the krill food source, and krill feeds everything. Well, fishing is kind of the big question mark right now, because there's fishing companies from all over the world, and they're going in and they're sucking out hundreds of thousands of tons of krill every season. And scientists are trying to wrap their heads around, like, what is the appropriate amount of krill that can be taken out of the water? And krill is used for like omega-3 supplements, and some people eat it, and krill oil and different things like that. But we need to be responsible. We need to kind of wrap our heads around what is the appropriate amount of food to take out, because we're going to just wipe out all these animals that are completely codependent on this thing. So the story is based about fishing as much as it is climate change. You can see the ice kind of receding here. And again, krill need ice. And all these other animals need ice as well, as do we. But, we need to figure this out. 100 years ago, these are blue whale bones right here. You'd see them everywhere. They were really cool to see, but they weren't blue whales that just like were beached, and that kind of came up and naturally died. They were from fishing about 100 years ago. The blue whale's the biggest animal that's ever been on the planet Earth. And it was hunted to near extinction about 100 years ago. And we need to learn, from our mistakes in the past. One of the scientists on the boat said that man has messed up every fishery in the world, and Antarctica is like our last chance to do it correctly. So we're hoping for good legislation and good decisions to kind of save this part of the planet. And I know that's an interesting tone to end on after all this adventure stuff I was talking about, but this stuff is so important to me, and I'm hoping that we can, do something that's impactful with the story, that people can see this and actually, keep good eyes on people that are making the decisions that can keep these places in checks and balances. And that's everything I have today. Thank you so much for listening.